Hey Mancavians, this is Bob from the Bob's N-Scale Man Cave, and today we are talking about how to make pine trees in N-Scale. Now, you've probably seen many techniques out there by different people out on YouTube, or you've seen them demonstrated somewhere else at your local hobby club even. But in this case, I'm kind of using a tried and true way of making pine trees, and that's using bamboo sticks that you can get for making shish kebabs from your local grocery store, and the blue furnace filter material that you can get from the hardware store. Get the raw blue material. You don't need all the paper around it and everything else. You just need the raw material, and it comes in rolls to make custom fitted filtering. So I want to thank Ron from Ron's Trains and Things, because I'm kind of borrowing, actually I am borrowing some of his techniques, and check out his video on that as well. You might learn something different than I learned, but I'm going to show you something slightly different than his, and that's all we're going to do today. So let's take a look at what I got right now. Come on, it's over here. I'm using this rust-oleum rusty metal primer. It was brown. I grabbed the first thing I really looked. Doesn't matter what kind of brown, as long as it's kind of a dark brown. And I'm just using this on my tree trunks. That's all it takes. Okay, I've got some blue insulation filter here, and I pulled off each side of the filter so that you have a nice open area of the filter material, because the outside covering is actually more dense, and it'll keep the paint from going inside there. I'm going to be starting off with this dark camouflage paint here from rust-oleum, and it'll give a nice dark shadowy feel to the leaves and branches. I may also fill in a little bit of sporadic, this light covering as well, give a little different color to a lot of the branches. That's the BNSF coming through. There you go, just a little bit of splattering of the light green, and it gives you both colors in all your material. Now to go wait for this to dry and then cut it up. For my dry brushing portion of this, I'm using some apple barrel paints that you can get from Walmart. I'm using the granite gray and trying out the pewter gray. And one's obviously lighter than the other, and it gives you kind of a color like that. And I'm trying the granite gray right now, and that kind of looks like that once you get it on there. You just set this off side to dry. And dry brush some on here. Sit there and you can turn it. Too much on there. Paper towel. Smeared up the sides a little bit. Less noticeable. And on to the next. Well, the cup was fine for a while, but eventually I just got to holding on to it because it was just wiggly too much. And then I just take the paint and laid it on on there and brushed it on. Okay, I'm all done making these sticks a little bit more grayer. I combined, I swapped back and forth between the granite gray versus the pewter gray. And so you can't really tell. They both kind of look the same when they're dry brushed. So either one's good. But I kind of preferred the pewter gray, which is darker. I just got to put more leaves on it and stuff, and it'll all hide later on. Let's try that next. Okay, you just take your filter material. I folded it twice along the side I was going to cut. And just cut a 1-inch wide strip. And that makes it a whole lot easier to cut through all this large material. And you just keep doing that till you've got enough. And then you take each strip and you cut it into 1-inch squares. So you cut off little tiny pieces, and you're going to be ready for the next step. You take those squares and you kind of make snowflakes out of them. You cut little V's in each side and then trim off the tips of each corner. Then you got sort of a little star shape that you can use for your trees. And you can kind of see that here, even though it's a little blurry, but that's how filming goes sometimes. And you kind of see that. You just make a bunch of those and you slide them down onto your armature or your bark, your trunk, and glue it in place. Or you can take and you can glue it right to the filter material and then slide it down the trunk. That works a little bit better, doesn't make so much of a mess. And you can see a lot of glue right there, and you don't want that. But once you get your trees done, you can take some Aquanet and you spray it, and that's going to be your glue. And then I made my own little shaker and put some dark green ground foam onto it, and I'm putting it near, from the bottom to the top, so it kind of gets underneath the branches and on the toward the inside of the tree as much as possible. And periodically you just spray more Aquanet on there to lock it in. And as you can see, I'm putting a little bit more in there because it just wasn't coming out as well. And then tap some off and then spray it with Aquanet. And then I'm going to come in there with a lighter color and go from the top. As you can see, I'm raising up the tree so that all the stuff falls on the top of the leaves and branches, and that'll look kind of like a little sunlight effect to it. So here's a tip on how to determine how big you should make your pine trees. At 1/60th scale, which is N scale, you need to make a tree that looks, somewhat realistic. And that can range anywhere from, a 40-foot tree all the way up to a 150-foot tree, depending on the species you're making. And most pine trees kind of look about the same, and so it's hard to tell. But if you're making something that's an average-looking pine tree, they range between 50 and 80 feet. So let's take a kind of an average between that is, maybe 65 feet. So how do we figure that out? Well, you get out your calculator and you do the math. And you take 65 feet times the number of inches in a foot, which is 12. That's going to give you 780 inches. Now you have to divide that by the scale, 1/160. So divide that by 160. That's going to give you 4.875 inches for a 65-foot tree. So let's say you wanted a 150-foot tree, because it could go that tall, and you need some really tall growth in your forest that you're making. So you take the 150 times 12 equals 1800 divided by 160, and it's 11 1/4 inches tall. That's a pretty tall tree. how tall is a 65-foot tree in HO scale. So let's go 65 times 12, divide that by 87, and that would be 8.96 inches tall. There you go. There's your little tip to making your trees look as tall as they need to look. And this one's pretty tall. This is probably going to be about an 80-foot tree when I'm done with it. So I made a bunch of these trees. They're a little tall. All I got to do is cut them down a little bit. Also made some trees out of toothpicks. You can see they're only, well, toothpick size. Those are for those really short trees or some forced perspective kind of looks. If you need to get something that kind of looks really far off in the distance, you can make smaller trees. Depends on where you put them. I put some of them on my mountain wall door there that I'm making in the Helix Mountain series, and that'll be one of the next videos. Just trying to get a look and see what it looks like. Well, Mancavians, that's been the end of this video on how I made pine trees. As you can tell, this is the very first time I probably made pine trees. And yes, this was the very first time I ever made pine trees. I watched a lot of things from a lot of different people in person, on video, and I took basically the same kind of techniques of taking, some sort of stick, a little dowel rod, bamboo shoot, shish kebab kind of thing, painted up the furnace filter material, cut it into little star shapes, glued them on, trimmed as I went to kind of get some sort of pointy top to it, and figured out how high I wanted those trees to look on my layout. I learned a lot, and the good thing is the more I make these, the better I'm going to get at it, and the better you're going to get at it too if you've never done it as well. So I hope you learned something from this video as well as I did. It's now September and the modeling season's starting to kick in. The grass is starting to die. The leaves are going to start falling here soon. And so I got to get back into the swing of things of putting out some videos here for you guys and girls, you Mancavians, to watch. Without further ado, you guys go out there and practice making trees, and I'll see you later. Bye. So if you like what you saw here today, go ahead and click subscribe down here below, or follow my Facebook, Google+, Twitter, and my Instagram, links down here below in the comments. Also, click on one of my other links for videos as well. As always, Mancavians, happy model railroading. Stay off the tracks. Bye.